Okay, welcome to another episode of KZ Talk Sports, your number one page and channel for premium banter, football-related content, tactical analysis, match analysis, and so much more. I just wanted to put out this, before I get started. This page is just my own opinions. I'm sharing my own opinions and I'm not presenting it as a gospel truth, right? So your comments, your views, your opinions as well are very much appreciated. If you would like to be brought on the show to debate a certain talking point or a certain topic, maybe about your football club or about soccer in general, regardless, you can send me an email at kzytalksport@gmail.com. It's going to be live on the screen right now, kzytalksport@gmail.com. Of course, there will always be an element of banter in my talks, rather. However, what I aim to do is I aim to discuss, the honest truths, about the games, about the matches, and about the football clubs that I will be talking about frequently on this show. Now, today, what I want to do is I want to do a post-match review of a couple of games that were played this weekend. I'm talking about the Bournemouth Chelsea game, the Leeds versus Liverpool game. I'll also talk about the Aston Villa versus Arsenal game, and I'll touch briefly on the Man City versus Sunderland game. Now, if you notice, of the 4 games that I mentioned involving the Big Six, or the traditional Big Six in quotes, 3 of them were away games, and the Big Six teams didn't perform well in those games. I'm talking about Chelsea drawing to Bournemouth, Liverpool drawing to Leeds, and Arsenal losing to Aston Villa. Man City won their home game against Sunderland, which was expected. But yes, going on to the Bournemouth versus Chelsea game, I said, Bournemouth was going to be a difficult game for Chelsea. Bournemouth away was going to be a difficult game for Chelsea. One thing I've noticed about Chelsea is, and I said it previously in other episodes, I said Chelsea, it seems to me like they are very inconsistent. They do very well against the big teams. They are much more motivated against the big teams. But when it comes to the smaller teams, they seem to always struggle, against the smaller teams, and that's is a source of concern, not just for Chelsea fans. I think for the players as well and the manager. That game, in my opinion, it could have gone either way. I mean, Bournemouth. Everyone knows Bournemouth. This season under Iraola, they are playing extremely well. A fantastic side. They don't have any special players, so to speak, except for Semenyo, right? They play together as a team, and they pose a threat for any club, any serious team, aside the traditional top 6. But then again, I want to touch on the rotation of that Chelsea does, or Maresca does, employ as the manager. I think that, and I understand the rotation. I really do. I get the fact that you're trying to rest some injury-prone players like Fofana, Reece James, and the likes. But in my opinion, outside those two, I think it needs to try and establish what the starting 11 is. If you're going to prioritize the Premier League, because the Premier League is such that there are 38 games, and you have to be consistent across 38 games. That's how you'll be named champions at the end of the season, right? So if you're constantly rotating your squad, when you weigh the pros and the cons, right? The pros is that you keep starting players fresh. You're less likely to be plagued by injuries or fatigue or tiredness because everyone is getting to play. You're also trying to maintain or preserve, and in some cases increase the value of certain players so that you can resell them, which I think is Chelsea's model, by the way. However, the cons is that you will be inconsistent, and that's what is plaguing Chelsea at the moment, right? You'll be inconsistent. For example, or this is how I see it, right? When you rotate your players frequently, especially your attacking players, they are less likely to develop a chemistry or a bond together, because chemistry requires that you play certain players together consistently over a certain period, so that way they're able to develop much more chemistry. But if you constantly rotate these players, what you're doing is you're reducing the time that it will take them to really bond together and play together as second nature, right? If you're starting Gittins today and tomorrow you're starting Estaval and next tomorrow you're starting Garnacho, it's going to take time. It's going to take time for all these combinations, or for your main 11 to be able to secure that chemistry, and then they can just find themselves with their eyes closed. And I think that's what is plaguing them, because defensively against the small teams, right? And it also happens defensively. I see a lot of rotations across the back line. Sometimes Chaluba plays from the right, sometimes it's Gusto, sometimes it's Rich James. Gusto is playing the midfield, see, like I said, the pros and the cons. And it leads me to say that I think Chelsea are built for the cup games. The way Maresca is rotating the squad, I think they are built for cup games. I won't be surprised if they do very well in the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, the Champions League, just like they did last season, the Conference League and the Club World Cup. But in the league, you need a consistent starting 11, at least with just a few tweaks here and there. That's how you win the league. So going into the start of the game, I think it was a fairly even game. Chelsea had a lot more possession, 61 to 39%. Bournemouth had more expected goal. They had more XG, 1.42 to 0.92. They created more big chances, had more shots than Chelsea. It was a game in which Chelsea had more possession, but Bournemouth were clearly dominating. And that, like I said, is an issue, because if you're going to be contending for the title, you're going to be competing with the likes of Man City and currently Arsenal. You need to do better in terms of being consistent, right? The next couple of fixtures, I think they have that Atlanta game in the Champions League. They're traveling to Italy for the Atlanta game in the Champions League rather, and then they have Everton at home next weekend, which I think is going to be a tricky game because Everton are currently in form, and it's also going to be a game where Chelsea will struggle. Like I said, against the smaller teams, Chelsea have been struggling all season, even though it's at Stamford Bridge. Let's hope that they can win the game and get some point, because it looks like they're no longer contenders for this title. Far off Arsenal, I think about 8 points. So when you look at after that game, they have a game against Cardiff. I think it's going to be an easy victory for them. But then they have some tough games coming up. They have Newcastle away, they're playing Aston Villa, and then they have Bournemouth at home. And these are games that we know that Chelsea will struggle. But aside from that, I think relatively right now at this point in the season, they are not doing very bad. They are still in the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup is yet to start. They're in a very good position in the Champions League. They can improve on that position midweek in the game against Atlanta, and then hopefully, if Maresca, I understand that December is a very tough period for because the games are coming thick and fast, so he has to rotate more. But say January, I think he needs to maintain a constant starting 11, so that Chelsea can rack up some point and try to make themselves present, in and around Man City and Arsenal come March or April. And I'm sure a lot of Chelsea fans will agree with me. If you don't agree with me, please share your opinion, and I like your comments, in the comment section. Now, moving on to the other game, the Leeds versus Liverpool game. There is something happening in Liverpool, and it's actually becoming concerning, even for me as a rival fan. Yes, I love to banter them, right? They won the title last season, practically ran away with the title last season, but the stark contrast in their performances last season and this season is something to be extremely worried about. Yes, they went to Elland Road, and Elland Road is looking problematic, right? I think Leeds, their last game before the Liverpool game, they won Chelsea 3-1 at home, and then they faced Liverpool, and then they drew Liverpool 3-3 as well. So Elland Road is looking like it's tough. I think the Premier League is tough in general, if we are to keep it a buck. Honestly, I was watching the game. I'm a Liverpool fan, right? I was really interested in the game because I wanted to see what Liverpool were going to do differently. It was a perfect opportunity for them to pick up some points, ease the pressure off Arne Slot. And then the game was 2-0. I think Ekitike scored in the space of 3 to 4 minutes. So in my head, I'm like, this game is done. And I wanted to catch, some rest. I was going to catch up with the game later, only for me to check the scores about an hour later, and it was 3-3. I honestly, I think Arne Slot has ruined this club. Honestly, I think he's starting to. I think he's clueless in his tactics. I was of the opinion. I am still of the opinion that the club didn't get their transfer business right in the summer, right? And he has an unbalanced squad. However, with the quality of players that he has, you have Isak, you have Salah, you have Van Dijk, you have the likes of Gravenberch, you have a Florian Wirtz. You should not be performing as poorly as he is. There is no excuse for not being able to win against a Leeds team. There's no excuse for drawing. I can understand the Sunderland game, but some of the games that they've lost this season, you just wonder, like, what exactly is going on with Arne Slot? Is he being found out? Is he being, it makes you wonder what happened last season. It was a club team, but then Klopp also did not win the league with the team that he left with Arne Slot, I think the season before, which led him to resigning. But then again, you start to wonder what exactly is going on. Throwing away a 2-goal lead against Leeds is something to be worried about. And I think he's really exposing himself as a fraud, if for lack of a better word. Honestly, when I looked at the game, I mean, they were almost outplayed by Leeds. I mean, Leeds had 45% possession, they had 55%. The expected goals were very close. Leeds had 1.51 and Liverpool 1.91. So it shows you that it was a tight game. Leeds had 12 shots, Liverpool had 16 shots, right? It was a really tight game. Leeds were able to put about 402 passes together compared to Liverpool's 503. So it clearly shows you that they are struggling. And now something I also want to talk about. I mean, after the game, Salah did come out and he was talking about how he's being thrown under the bus and how he feels like someone in the club wants him out or wants him to take the blame. Now, I know I said in my previous episode that Salah wasn't in form and I felt like he should be dropped to allow for other players to play and try to prove to the manager that they can get the job done. However, I'm starting to have doubt, and here's why. I think that there are two ways to look at it. If you're looking at it from the angle of, and his slot seems like he's trying his best to make the best out of the situation, and then he's trying to find a way to combine this with these players and try to get the best to get some result going. That is one I can understand him being dropped. But secondly, I think there's a bigger issue at hand. I think that and it's not starting to lose the dressing room, and certain players are just not playing for him, or they do not believe in his tactics, and hence the poor performances, right? Because if you really think about it, especially with the comments that Salah dropped, and honestly I think I'm much more on Salah's side, because it's practically impossible for a player that single-handedly won the title for Liverpool last season to now all of a sudden be dropping poor performances this season. I think one has to look at the bigger issue here. There's an underlying factor, and I think it's not just Salah. I think the manager has a lot he has a lot of the blame to shoulder. I think there is something wrong tactically, and I also believe that players are starting to look at the manager and like, you know what, we don't think this is our guy, and hence the poor result. Because I mean, look at the squad, regardless of whether the squad is unbalanced or not. Of course, they needed defensive cover in the summer, and they were not really to pull through with that. But come on, you have Isak, you have Salah, you have Aneketike, you have McAllister, Gravenberch, Van Dijk, Konate. These are not bad players. These are extremely good players. So the poor form says a lot about the manager, and I would agree with Liverpool fans to say that he is walking on thin ice right now. If he were to get sacked tomorrow, honestly, I will not be surprised. I will not be surprised. Honestly, I think their result needs to change, because Leeds, come on, that's a game that they should have won. That's the game that they should have. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for losing that, for drawing that game, especially going 2 goals ahead and then eventually drawing that game. Now, and honestly, if the run of result doesn't change, I think Arne Slot is risking getting slack. And when I look at their next couple of fixtures, I think their next game against Inter Milan in the Champions League is going to be it's a game to watch. It's an away game for Liverpool, and Inter, as we all know, they are solid, massively solid defensively. So if Liverpool is not able to get a result against Inter, I think he's going to get sacked. There are already rumors about who might step in as temporary replacement. I'm hearing the likes of Steven Gerrard. I'm hearing the likes of Steven Gerrard. I think there was another manager, I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, and the Slot is definitely feeling the pressure. And even after the Inter game, their next couple of fixtures are extremely tough. I'm seeing Brighton at home, Tottenham away, give Wolves at home, which is an easy game. Leeds at home. I mean, they drew 3-3 to Leeds. So you agree with me by saying that that game is also going to be a tricky game. They have Fulham away after that, and they have Aston away. So these are extremely tough fixtures. If he's not able to get at least 6 points in the next 2 games, I think he's going to get sacked. And that's going to be unfortunate, because like I said, they have brilliant players, but he's not able to get the result for them at the moment. And I hope that this Salah situation can be dealt with, right? I hope it can be dealt with as quickly as possible so it doesn't completely, derail. I mean, their season looks like it's already derailed anyways. They're out of the Carabao Cup. They're not competing in the league. They are, they're not nowhere near competing in the Champions League as well. It's looking really sour, for Liverpool and Liverpool fans, right? And Salah is going for the AFCON. He's going for the African Cup of Nations, I think, in a week or so. So when he comes back, what is he going to mean? Is he still coming back to meet Arne Slot, or a changed coach, a changed system? That's also one thing to watch out for. But I sympathize with Liverpool fans, honestly. I sympathize with Liverpool fans. I have an episode with a Liverpool fan later today. We'll be discussing the state of the club. We'll be discussing the state of the club and debating one or two issues as to why their form is as they are now. Moving on to the Aston Villa versus Arsenal game. This game was the first game whereby after the game I just brought out my mic, set up my camera, and then just started recording a reaction because I was so pissed. I was so pissed at that game. I've never been angry at a game. I wasn't angry after we lost against. I wasn't that angry after we lost against Liverpool, or after we drew Chelsea, or even Sunderland. But you see this Aston Villa game, I was really pissed. And I feel like, honestly, before the game, I felt it was a game that we're probably not going to win. We're probably not going to win. And for two reasons. One, the first reason, historically, or in recent seasons, we've been having it tough at Villa Park. Away at Villa has always been a tough fixture. Even at home to Villa, it's always been a tough fixture. I remember 2 seasons ago, they were literally the ones that made us not win the title because they beat us 2-0 at home. And we had like a brilliant run in that period. So I always felt like it was going to be a tough game. Now, the second reason was Villa, prior to that game, they were in front. I think they had won 9 out of their last 10 Premier League games, or is it 8 out of their last 9, right? So it wasn't a good combination for us leading into the game. And like I predicted, we started really poorly. It was a poor start from Arsenal. A poor start for us. And then they scored the goal, Matthew Cash. And honestly, Eze was to blame for that goal. He was sleeping. He did not track his man, Cash, who just snuck up behind him and scored the goal. And there's something I want to say about Eze. I think ever since the Tottenham game, his performances for me have been very worrisome. Has been very worrisome. I think he needs to get out the fact that he scored a hat-trick out of his head. This is the Arsenal Football Club. The standards are very high. You need to produce week in, week out. You cannot have a week or a game where you're just ghosting or you're not present, right? Especially because you're playing as a central figure in those games. Now, it started on the wing against Aston Villa, and I can understand why. Odegaard, the captain, Odegaard, the one that helps in the build-up, helping the centre-backs to progress the ball and things like that, which is something that Eze was not able to do, receive the ball deep, because Eze's first instinct is to dribble his way out of a situation. But Odegaard's first instinct is to pass the ball, to a safe space, or just hold on to the ball till the pressure is off, right? So I can understand Odegaard coming in for Eze in that position, but then Eze on the left, it wasn't really anything to hold on to. I think he was extremely poor. And for Eze, one thing I would say is you need to be able to cement your place in this team. You need to play with that level. You need to play with intention. You need to play with arrogance. You need to play with the fact that you want to stake a claim. You don't want to be a player that comes off the bench, or a player that is a backup to someone else. I don't know if I'm making sense. So that's what I was looking to see, or that's what I'll be looking to see from Eze, because I believe he's a fantastic player. And I don't want to hear any nonsense about, he's best centrally, he's not good. When he plays for England, he plays off the left, and he scores good goals. He has good games off the left. And when he was playing for Crystal Palace, it wasn't their system is much more different, but it was predominantly on the left. So I don't want Arsenal fans, obviously we've lost the game, everyone is reacting, everyone is pissed and all of that, and everyone is just giving takes that I feel like are just emotionally motivated. But anyways, like I said, Eze, I want to see more of Eze in the next couple of games. I need him to take ownership. The first half was poor. Second half, first 15 minutes of the second half, we were on top. I think we had about 83% possession, and that helped with the introduction of Trossard and Gyökeres, right? We're pressing them high. Odegaard was pressing, Gyökeres was pressing, Trossard was pressing, and then the goal that we scored was the result of that press. Konsa and Pau Torres, honestly, they are good ball playing defenders, but they are not the best. So you can force errors out of them, and that's what happened. I also think it was with Onana that he got the one. I think it was Declares that won the ball off him, and then we went on to score. Now my issue is, after we scored that goal, why did we sit back? Why didn't we continue? Why didn't we continue to pile on the pressure? Is it a mentality issue? Is it a tiredness issue? What exactly is going on? That's something that I struggled with. And honestly, we just allowed them into the game. It wasn't supposed to be a game of control, especially in the way we started the second half. We started brilliantly. If we had continued to press, continue with that same level of energy, even if it was for the next 15 to 20 minutes, we would have scored another goal and probably another goal and would have put the game to bed. But that didn't happen. We sat back. It was now a very lazy performance after that. We allowed Villa into the game. Of course, Emery made some brilliant substitutions and he queued off the game. At some point, I looked at Declan Rice. He was tired. That man is being run to the ground. And people talk a lot about injuries that we are suffering. I strongly believe that a lot of these injuries can be attributed to Arteta not being able to make some substitutions or not being able to rest certain players. Right? Honestly, before Gabriel and Saliba got injured, they had no business starting almost every game. We had Ben White on the bench. I know Nkapie was injured for a while, but they had no business starting every game. We don't have to wait for a player to get injured before we start to bring in other players that we bought. For example, why did we sign Christian Norgard? In a game like that, you could have taken off Declan Rice. Because Declan Rice and Zubimendi, in my opinion, they are irreplaceable. If anything were to happen to either of them or both of them, that's the season over for us now. That is season over for us. I think Arteta needs to be much more courageous in putting this player. Christian Norgard is Premier League proven. Yes, he might not be able to play those positions to the best of his ability like Rice and Zubimendi would, but there's a reason why you bought him. The former Brentford captain, he has the experience to see out the games. When games get dirty, he can do the job. And I was expecting that he would have, come on for Rice or at least Zubimendi in the game. But he did not. And it was a tired performance. The last 20 minutes of that game, I was hoping for a draw. Because I knew that if anyone were to get a win, it was going to be Aston Villa, right? Honestly, Madueke also came on, and my issue with Madueke, I think that it would improve, but he makes a lot of bad decisions. There's no denying his one-on-one ability, being able to take on his man, get past his man and lay in a cross or whatever. But his decision making when it gets into the final third is something that he needs to work on. Saka does his best at that, even though in the recent games he has been much more selfish, but it is proven. He has proven that when it comes to getting into when you are in the opposition's box or the opposition's third, you have to make the right decisions. There was a ball that he dribbled and he could have just kept going straight, but he kept going to his left. That's poor decision making. There was another cross that Declan Rice made to him, and then he just tried to, he snatched at the chance. He could have been a lot more calmer in that situation, especially because we needed the goal, right? Also, Gyökeres, I've seen a lot of take about people saying, it doesn't look like an Arsenal type of player. He's this, he can't hold or play, he does not, he doesn't get chances, blah, 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 and this and that. Now, here's the thing. It's not like I don't share any of these views, but I'm not going to be in a rush to put him under the bus, right? I think that before he got injured, especially in that Burnley game, he was our best player. It looked like he was coming into, his form and understanding the team, and his teammates were understanding him better. However, he got injured and he missed like 5 or 6 games. It's unfortunate that he has to restart that process from scratch, right? And I think that's what happened. He needs a run of games to be able to get that form back together. And we all know he's a brilliant finisher. The team has to find him more. Now, once that happens, I think that is going to be brilliant, right? And honestly, I'm not going to judge his performance or his whatever till the end of the season. I'm going to give him one full season for him to be able to prove himself. Yes, his touches were poor yesterday. It looked like he wasn't even able to hold or play. He was bullied off the ball. At times he was lazy in his run and things like that. But don't forget that our equalizer, if not for Martinez, pushing the ball towards Trossard, he would have easily scored that goal, right? He would have tapped it in. Yes, towards the end of the game, because he hasn't played in a long while, he also started to get tired and stuff like that. So he was making late runs. And these are the things that people don't understand. So when I looked at the game again, I saw that this was the issue, right? We have some brilliant games coming up where I think that he can gain, he can build up his fitness, and he can also score some goals. Club Brugge away, I think is a perfect game for him. Wolves at home next weekend, I think is a perfect game for him before we now start to play, the more difficult games, I think against Everton, Crystal Palace, Brighton, and the likes. Yes, We had tired legs. Honestly, like I said, I think Arteta needs to be much more courageous. There's no reason why a Nwaneri shouldn't come on at the very least for someone like Odegaard, right? That boy needs some minutes. He needs some minutes. He needs some minutes. There's no reason, because now we're trying to avoid injuries. Like I said, you don't wait for players to get injured before you replace them. You do not wait. You do not wait for players to get injured before you replace them. Mosquera, for example, now is injured again, I think about 6 to 8 weeks. So these are the issues. Now, honestly, Man City, they are 2 points behind Arsenal. Like I said, I've made a post on Twitter. I'm not going to comment about Arsenal being in any title race until March or April at the very least. The way the league is right now, it is really, really hard. It is really, really hard. We lost to Aston Villa, but if you really think about it, that was the end of an 18-game unbeaten run. Think about it. Arsenal went on an 18-game unbeaten run, and in those 18 games, we drew only 3 games. That is, we won 15. Now, despite all of that, and I'm saying this is across the Premier League and the Champions League, despite all of that, we are first, but with 2 points. So that tells you the level of the league. It's not as if Man City 2 haven't dropped point or anything. They have dropped point, but it tells you the level of the league. Right now, if you look at the league table, aside the top 3, where 3 points separate Arsenal and Aston Villa, from the 4th to the 12th, they are separated by also 3 points. 3 points separates Chelsea and Man U in 12th place. So you can see that it's a very, very difficult league. It's an extremely difficult league. Pep is already on our use, but then it's only in December. Arsenal will still drop points. Chelsea will still drop points. Man City will drop points. All teams will drop points. I don't want to hear no title conversation until April and May, and then we see who is where, who is who, and then we can now start to say, okay, it's our title to lose or whatever. Anyways, but as in the light of all this, I still believe that this season is either hit or it has to be that season for Arteta. It has to be that season for Arteta, right? He needs to deliver a title. Arteta, you cannot afford to go trophyless. Now, this is not to put pressure on Arsenal or anything, but Arsenal has to deliver the title this season. It's been 6 years with only 1 FA Cup and I think 2 Community Shields to show for it. That is not the level. That is not what, especially with the amount of money that has been spent, right? But like I said, it's still early, and I feel Arsenal fans should calm down. Yes, I was angry in my reaction, but then, like I said, it's still a long season to go. Hopefully, we can be much more lucky with our injuries. Players don't drop like flies. Arteta, please just rotate the squad. Play Norgard, play Nwaneri, play these players more. Distribute the load. They are quality players. They are much better than they seem, right? And I believe that at the end of come April or May, Arsenal will be in and around that conversation. Hopefully then you can secure the title. Now moving on to the final game, Man City versus Sunderland. I didn't really watch this game, so I don't really have a lot to say, but I will say this: Pep is experienced, especially in the Premier League. He is not to be played with. And something is scary about this team. They don't seem like they are tired. Yes, they've had like a few shaky performances here and there, but they do not seem like they are tired. They seem like they are gaining form at the right time. Now it's scary. It is scary. Now, I said in about, I think last week in 2 or 3 episodes, I said if Alan doesn't score, if Alan doesn't play, Man City, they have a bad game. Now, I think Pep realized that, and he has made sure that the goals are coming from elsewhere. In their last 3 games, I think Alan only scored in 1 of those games. In 2 of those 3 games, Foden, Cherki, other players have been getting in the goals. Now, that is scary about Man City because they have the players. It seems like their players are coming back from injuries. They look fit. They are playing with confidence. Now, it's still a long season. They will have some tough games. However, if you're going in for the title, the last person you want on your heels is Pep. Because trust me, come April or May, if you slip up, he is going to take advantage. And that is just the end. Once he gets to the first, he's not coming down. He's not coming down. Now, the game against Sunderland, it was at home. Easy victory, 3-0 victory. As expected, they completely dominated that game. 2.4 XG to 0.71. 3 big chances, 18 shots to Sunderland's 8. Passes 623. More than half of what Sunderland could put together. Now that is scary. That is extremely scary. Foden scored, Diaz scored, and Josko Vadio scored. That is extremely scary. And their next couple of games too, they are relatively easy games for Man City. Bar the game against Real Madrid in the Champions League. They are going to the Santiago Bernabeu. But when they come back, they're playing Crystal Palace away. I think Crystal Palace is a tricky fixture for them. They haven't really won. I think Crystal Palace have probably won 2 or 3 of their last 4 games. And then they play Brentford at home in the Carabao Cup. They play West Ham at home. They play Forest away. And they play Sunderland away. Now these games for Pep, easy games. Easy games for Pep. Arsenal needs to watch out. They need to desperately watch out. Pep is, and last thing you want is Pep on your heels. That happened twice before in the past. That Pep was just, behind, and then at the end, come April, he just took over and they won the league. You just know that 20 game unbeaten run starting in January or February and that is the end. That is the end. So Arsenal need to watch out. Anyways, I think that will be that's the end of my review of the games that were played this weekend. Manchester United play later today. Hopefully they can win the game. I might bring a Manchester United fan, a very good friend of mine, who has been frustrated of recent and has been begging to come on the show so that I can, crash out, in his words. Hopefully, if they win the game, there will be no need for that. But if they lose, definitely that episode is going to happen. If they win, I think they probably go to as high as maybe the 4th or 5th position, and that's, like I said, it's crazy. It tells you how difficult the Premier League currently is. Anyways, if you loved this episode, these reviews, if you have any, if you love this episode and these reviews, please like and share this content. If you have any views or any opinions, if you want to debate anything that I said, if you feel like my opinion about something is not is wrong, or you feel like you have a better opinion or you have an opposing opinion, please drop your comments in the comment section and let's talk it out. And if you want to be brought on the show so that we can have some positive debates, we can look at your team and discuss what really is going on, what is wrong, things that can be improved, please reach out to me on kzytalksport@gmail.com, and then we can schedule a time for you to come on the show and then we can talk these issues, right? So anyways, thank you for sticking with me up to this point. I remain your host, Ikezi, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.